right, so we are all here to talk about the future of virtualization in this post-Broadcom world, which has caused a massive shift and is impacting everyone's short and long-term plans. So everyone speaking today, who I'll introduce in just a minute, attended VMware Explore a few weeks ago, and there were a few takeaways that painted a much more clear picture of where things are headed. So we're going to go through those takeaways, our viewpoint, and then share several ways in which we can help, both short-term and long-term. And our goal is to really help narrow down and hone in on an ecosystem that supports innovation, maintains enterprise-level quality, but also is still affordable. So I'm not sure, Chris, are you able to insert the poll question?
Yes, doing it now.
Okay, we'll go ahead while I introduce everybody. Feel free to share, and we're going to ask a question on what you guys have been seeing as far as your VMware renewal goes. So I'm Caitlin Fitzgerald. I'm the regional sales manager at Tintri for the Southeast. I specialize in on-prem and hybrid cloud storage solutions that are tailored for virtualized workloads. I've been an advocate for customers grappling with the changes that have been brought on by the acquisition, and then helping my clients find those resources to help with the shifts that are taking place. We also have Tony Best on the call. He's the president of Tensus Technology. He has 15 years experience. He's held positions of executive management, virtualization lead, infrastructure architect, including working at Tintri for some time as an SE. He also has 10 years experience in corporate IT, supporting open systems and storage applications such as SQL and Oracle. And then Chris Gallimore, he is my SE here at Tintri. He's been with Tintri for 7 years. He previously spent 7 years at VMware as an SE, and then 7 years at EMC as well. So if you haven't already, go ahead and answer that poll question. And I can't see the results populate, but Matt or Chris, are you able to share that?
I'm seeing it coming now. Yeah, coming through now. So 88% of people have answered. So the first poll question was for our VMware customers. Could you outline what your latest renewal costs look like? So 25% said they remain the same. 13% said 1 to 3 increase. 38% said it was a 3 to 6x increase, and then 25% said more than 6x. So more than half of the people are getting a significant increase there.
Okay.
Then for the second question, for those customers considering switching, which hypervisors are you switching to? So almost half of the 5 out of 9 respondents said Hyper-V.
Okay.
1 Citrix, 3 Proxmox, 1 XCP-NG, and 1 looking at public cloud, and then 2 other. So
okay,
kind of
awesome.
A mishmash there, but a lot of Hyper-V interest.
Okay, excellent. We will touch on that in just a bit. Oh, there it goes. I can see it now.
So you guys could take a quick look at that.
Okay. All right, so to really kick things off, we know that the acquisition has caused a very disruptive situation, one that we really haven't seen in a long time. But we're all in agreement that the shift is not related to technical innovation. It's really just the financial consequences of Broadcom's decision to only focus on their most profitable clients. So when we're at Explore, they definitely confirmed that they are all about business, and that everything that we were really expecting is coming to fruition. So one being, you can no longer purchase licenses through hyperscalers. They're going to continue the push towards VCF, and that is forcing, as many of you have already seen, companies and organizations to purchase bundles that include software that isn't necessarily needed at a huge cost. So people really left still feeling like they need alternatives. And since Explore, we've had customers come to us pretty much daily to discuss their options. There seems to be a lot of inconsistency all the way from what their new bill looks like, which was definitely confirmed by the poll that we just threw up, to what strategies and options are feasible and available. And since we've always been a company that's focused on simplifying virtualization and promoting freedom of choice, we were really in a good position to help advise with all the different options out there. However, to be clear, we're definitely not bashing VMware. 95% of our customers are still running on VMware. Many plan to stay, and we still think it's the best hypervisor, and it's not going away. But we understand that there needs to be options that are actually affordable and remain a technical fit. So HCI seems to be a huge conversation right now, but the reality is switching to a new platform requires a ton of considerations. Even the CEO of Nutanix acknowledges moving to a KVM-based hypervisor is not going to be an overnight job. Other hyperconverged options seem to lack an enterprise feel, and again, require a lot of work on staff to train and replatform. So I'm going to transition over to Tony Best. He's going to discuss the reality, the evaluation process of the different options, and again, from a very agnostic point of view. And just as a reminder, please remain on mute, but do not hesitate to drop any questions or comments in the chat, and we will answer them as they roll in. All right, Tony.
I'm here.
There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tony Best, as Caitlin said. So let's jump right into it. You know, the acquisition of VMware closed on November 2023. I'm pretty sure that no one woke up on January 2025 and said I have to re-architect my whole data center, and I had that in plan and budget. So that dynamic has not changed. In fact, it's just accelerated. As Caitlin said, we're at VMware Explore in Vegas. And even after the keynote speech by Hock Tan, many walked away more confused or more with answers without answers as what they were going to do going forward. As Caitlin said, this is not a technical issue, this is a financial issue, right? You know, where do you move to when VMware works, right? So saying as of jumping out of a perfectly good airplane with a parachute, right? But what we found is it's falling into about 5 different pillars unanimously across the board as to what people are looking at, right? Yeah, the first one being status quo, right? The reality is that just in the time frame that people are getting their renewal bills, they don't have the time right now in the short term to migrate to new platform, but they are looking at it. And especially for enterprises where they have a lot of automation, workflow, staff training built around VMware, that move is even more costly and has become more determinative where they go. Unfortunately, from some customers, especially those in the SLED and education space where the discounts that they received from VMware have gone away, that change has to come a lot sooner than later. The next is hyperconverged. We all know the biggest one out there is Nutanix. Now, Nutanix has been around for a while. I sold Nutanix. I worked with Nutanix. It's a good platform. But what's interesting is that Nutanix has gotten a lot of buzz, primarily around Acropolis, their KVM-based hypervisor, which works, right? But in order to get the hypervisor, you're having to adopt a whole new architecture, which itself comes with inherent things that are given to hyperconverged, such as being locked into a specific architecture, limited on which hardware vendors you can work with, licensing, especially applications like Oracle, which licensed by core, which means that every node in that system has to be licensed. You know, enterprises tend to break out their Oracle into their own VMware clusters, not as feasible with hyperconverged, as well as certification with certain applications that have not been certified on Acropolis. And quite frankly, it's not necessarily the most cost-effective option out there. So for those smaller customers, those select customers, it still is a financial issue moving to that platform. Next is the cloud. So the cloud is not new, it's been around for a while, but people are re-examining the cloud in two aspects. VMware has this change in VMware has called people to look at the cloud as a migration off of premise to the cloud. But there's also those customers who were migrating to the cloud and are still migrating, who are now reevaluating their migration. You may have heard the word repatriation, where customers are bringing their workloads back from the cloud. That's because of data sovereignty issues, control. Some of you may have been impacted by the CloudStrike occurrence that happened about a month ago, where there was a wake-up call of putting all your eggs in one basket, because if something like that were to happen, you have no control of your data. Recovery becomes a little more challenging. So while cloud is definitely an option that people are looking at, is also something that enterprises are also evaluating as if that's viable as an all-in strategy. That's where we're seeing more leaning towards hybrid than all cloud. Even Hop Tan has illustrated his vision is customers bringing workloads back on premise. The next two are newer, right? Actually switching hypervisors. Very seldom did customers switch hypervisors just because. Even Nutanix, with their infrastructure, a lot of customers ran VMware on Nutanix. Some did adopt Acropolis. They made that decision years ago, but VMware had a strong installation base in Nutanix. Now customers are looking at other hypervisors such as Proxmox, Hyper-V, Citrix Zen Server. But again, all those come with the same inherent challenges of certification of applications, performance. Performance tuning on VMware has gotten to the point where it's pretty much install and go. Many applications have been certified in VMware. Adopting a new hypervisor means you have to adopt training, you have to adopt backup and DR, cybersecurity practices with a new hypervisor. And then lastly, the newer one is KubeVirt, application containers, which is newer, offers a great promise, but is very limited adoption, very new, and is more, I would say, something that's future and not something that's for smaller customers that don't have the ability to rewrite their own applications and their own workflows and workloads. Next slide. So talking about, where we were at, where we are, where we're going to, when we first went down this virtualization path, even with VMware, back in my day, I did a lot of P2Vs. So P2Vs, physical to virtual migrations, you migrated your systems to virtual machines. That process was a journey, right? And now we find ourselves again on yet a new journey. This time it's V2V, right? With V2V, as with P2Vs, there are certain things that are inherent to the process. One of those being that the existing infrastructure has to coexist during the entire migration process of the new target infrastructure, right? So that it will impact having to manage both your workflow, user training, deployment, hardware that you purchase, as well as your backup and recovery strategy. Then you have to come with a timeline. I spoke to a customer recently that had 350 virtual machines, right? Those migrations have to be done after hours because there is some downtime associated with that. Some of it's smaller or less downtime than others, but there is downtime. And that is something you have to work in with your existing workflow. IT and enterprise corporations have thousands of virtual machines. This can take quite a bit of time and manpower. As I said, the target must run side by side. So if you have a backend, like in a storage case where you don't have the same storage that can accommodate both environments, you're having to maintain two different storage silos side by side. If that one storage silo was coming up for end of support, end of maintenance, you have to wonder, what are you going to do for support while you're migrating to a new platform? The next is that you're going to migrate the easiest workloads first, right? That's what we did back when we did P2Vs. Now with V2Vs, you're not going to migrate your most critical applications first, but what you'll also find is sometimes some applications can't go, right? So you're going to be in a state where you're going to run a VMware environment coexisting with your new target environment, because the machine, the applications running in VMware just can't be migrated, either because of the application certification, performance. So your goal in that standpoint is to reduce the core count, which is what VMware is charging you on for your VMware environment while you move to something else. But you want to be able to have a single pane to monitor performance side by side between some environments. And we'll go into that in the demo of how that can be done with Tintri. Then you have again the burden on existing project with staff. Staff, someone has to do these migrations as well as maintain their day-to-day work. And then lastly is DR backup strategy. Again, if you're maintaining two environments doing this migration process, you're essentially going to have two backup and DR strategies unless you have an ecosystem that allows you to manage both through a single pane. So as Chris goes into the demo overview of the Tintri environment, you're going to see that you're going to hear this concept of freedom of choice, where we're not telling you have to go all in any one of these pillars per se, but yet you still have the manageability of managing your virtual environment in a cost-effective manner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Tony. Next slide, please. So yeah, so I think that was a great setup. Thank you so much, Caitlin and Tony, for setting me up here. I think that really sets the table for what we're seeing right now in terms of where the challenges all of us are experiencing in terms of where do we go with managing virtual environments and really just our applications. It's really what we're trying to provide the infrastructure for our applications, and how do we do that? And how do we do that with with the changes that are happening with VMware, which was pretty much the strategy that everyone was using in the past, and what other options do we have? So let's take a step a little bit backwards just to show like the philosophy of Tintri, which really works, which is really rock solid for where this kind of maturing market that we're in now around management of infrastructure. So we developed this, if you're at all familiar with Tintri, you've seen that it's the integration level with VMware, and that's not going away. So we're always going to have that deep integration with VMware, but we always have also had the ability to run other hypervisors. And you may be thinking, well, that every storage vendor does that. So the difference to what we do is we actually understand what those workloads are, and understand more about the applications. And when I say understand, we're talking about a AI engine, or a set of algorithms that really understands and knows about what virtualization is, what databases are, what containers are. And when you have that level of understanding, you're able to work with functions that really work well in storage, like moving bits from one place to another, or snapshotting an object and being able to recover point in time back to a point in time, or just refresh a database for any number of things. But these capabilities that are really work well with in the storage world, when it understands the application world, becomes a very powerful mechanism for managing your environment. So that difference that we have really in managing by the workload is quite different. And so I'm going to drill into these kind of four pillars of our kind of vision, and how how we are like implementing those today, and you can see how it will help you in your environment. Next slide. So Tony mentioned freedom of choice that we're going to talk about. So like we said, like pretty much you go to another storage array vendor and they're going to be hypervisor agnostic also. What's the difference? So since we're managing by the object and not by a construct like a volume, which every other storage vendor pretty much does, we have the ability to take actions at that object level. We're able to see real-time activity as the IO is landing on on the array, as IO is running. And that just dramatically helps you with things like troubleshooting your environment, and all the things we talked about protecting your workloads and your applications. you can run databases and containers side by side with your VMs and still get that same level of detailed visibility and control of those objects as well. So that this going forward into the future will allow you to run things like Tony mentioned KubeVirt, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what we're doing with Kubernetes. But the ability to run the side by side is a massive value add if you're heading down that direction, and just in the concept of giving you freedom of choice of what workloads you like to run, and giving you the power of being able to manage those very simply is what we're really focused on. Next slide. So what happened when what happened when we were talking about these objects and managing objects? So when virtualization came out, storage arrays were designed for the physical environment. They were designed for, hey, I'm running this application on this server. I want to put that onto my storage, separate it onto my storage array so I can get the value add of being able to replicate or to take clones and snapshots from those servers. So when you put virtualization on there, you put multiple servers onto a volume, and you instantly lost control. And that's what we're seeing on the left there, the IO blender. So these objects, let's say, we see SQL in green, we see Kubernetes in dark blue, and blue and dark blue. They just get mixed up together in a jumble as they land onto the system, and you cannot really see real time what's happening. So that's why every other storage vendor has some kind of delay in what you're looking at when you're looking at, because it has to go back to, let's say, vCenter, for example, on VMware. It has to go back to the management utility for the hypervisor itself in order to give you information about your environment. So we don't have to do that. We understand each and every object, so we can provide you things like what we were talking about, like performance predictability. So the AI engine is designed to give you sub-millisecond response time for each of these VMs, for example. And we'll be digging into this. But that, just as an example, it's going to manage that for you. So you're not worried about, oh, there's this LUN is starting to get full, I need to move one of these virtual machines off of this LUN, that type of thing. So we'll drill into that a little bit, especially in the demo. So we can go to the next slide. So simplicity is the key here. What we're trying to do is give you some time back in your day. We're trying to make this as simple as possible for you to manage your environment without having to be concerned, have uncertainty in your performance, have not an inability to really to drill into your systems, real time, and either real time or predictive visibility to everything you've got. And then really the main thing you get here is this accelerated productivity. So in terms of, I want to set up, let's say, for example, I want to set up like storage-based profiles for my for all of my workloads, so that I can just set a snapshot schedule to protect me from potential ransomware or DR event, that types of things. I want to set these up and forget about them. Just know that they're there, and I can go back and collect that if I need it, if it's needed. So that's what we're really doing, is we're giving you these types of capabilities so that you don't have to do anything to manage those. You don't have to go in and see if this LUN or volume is working okay, or move things around or anything like that. It's automatically done for you. So next slide. So drilling a little bit into the performance aspect. So here's a slide, and we're going to see this in the demo itself too, but you're getting, since we're working at that object level, we can drill into the object and see exactly what's happening with it. So in this case, we're looking at, you can see we've got this is a single VM, and we're able to see the latency that has occurred on that time. And if there was any host latency or storage latency, we could drill in there and go and see like what is exactly happening with this VM at this point in time. And since the AI engine, like we talked about, is guaranteeing you sub-millisecond response time from the storage, at least, you're going to be able to see, if there's something wrong there, you're going to be able to drill in and quickly fix that. And then the engines also understands these workloads over time, right? So it's expecting to see a certain activity pattern. So, maybe you do set a backup at night, and that kind of spikes IO or something like, on that VM because we're backing it up, et cetera. So it gets used to this kind of workload. And if there's a dramatic change, that's an anomaly. We can detect that anomaly and we can take action there. So, especially like, let's say if it was a ransomware event, we could see exactly where that happened because we have this data stored to see, to detect these anomalies. So just one of the examples of the value of having this kind of understanding of each workload. Next slide. Thanks. So then, let's drill into a little bit to this visibility, this VM level visibility. So for example, you see this, that green, we know when we click the next, I think if you click again, you'll see it kind of hovers over, we're hovering our slide over, or Caitlin, could you click one more time and we'll see, I think the, it comes up where we see what latency is. So green is that host latency. So we can see that VMS-DP1-EC, that has a lot of host latency. And that's where you could drill in and see what kind of latency that is. And I'll show this in the demo. So you're going to get to see it twice. But hey, I'm going to drill in and see what that issue is. And if I need to change something, since I have real-time visibility, I change something, I'm instantly going to see what that impact is. So I don't have to wait, call the user, say, hey, is it running better now? Or, how does it look? You're going to know that. You can call them up and say, hey, it looks like it's better now. Are you seeing anything, are you seeing anything different? Or even more important, if you're trying to take some action there, like I change since this is host, let's say I add a CPU to that VM. It didn't work. Let's say it didn't work. I still have the host latency. I can instantly start and try something else, turn that off and try something else instead of waiting for 30 minutes or longer to try to figure out what that issue is. Meanwhile, you've got an angry end user, right? Okay, next slide. So that's good for, I'm hoping that this is really showing you how easy this is to manage. So because this is what we're coming to is, all these settings and all these analytics and metrics and everything are at the VM level or at the database level or wherever level you'd like to see, even down to a vDisk. So I can drill into whatever level I need to find out the information I need. And then, like we talked about earlier, I set policies to protect these VMs, to protect against either a ransomware type event that would be, or a fat finger blow up event, or a disaster smoking hole in the data center event. And I just set those. And then if those, hopefully they never happen, but if they do, then I know that they're there, and I don't have to manage those on a daily basis because Tintri is handling all of that for me. Next slide. So you're probably wondering, so this is what we're talking about is our on-premise solution. So it is an appliance, but it's a very flexible appliance. So we can start with 10 drives in a system. We can scale to multiple petabytes by tying these together, and we can show you how you would tie multiple systems together. But if you need, a lot of our customers are smaller, let's say, and they want to add, there's kind of an advantage for a smaller customer or a larger customer. So I'm a smaller customer, I start with 10 drives and I just want to add 2 terabytes, I just add another single drive. If I want to add, 8 terabytes, I add 4 drives. All the RAID and all of the things that you might have to manage with other environments is all behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about any of that. And zero disruption to your environments and your day-to-day. So a drive fails, for example, a spare takes over, a drive is sent to you, you don't have to do anything about it at all until you just replace that drive. And, that's the only thing you're going to need to do. And actually, we can take care of that for you, right? If you need to, we can have hands-on in your data center. So next slide. So that's kind of the on-premise solution. So we're shifting a bit here to cloud. So we have two cloud options. We have the cloud platform and the cloud engine. So the cloud platform, we're gonna show this in a demo, quick demo, but it basically is a VMware-based solution. So if you're in VMware now, and you're like, like via the poll, we notice that half of you or more are experiencing like at least 3x. I bet it's probably more. What we're seeing is average around 5 or so increase in price. So, and now you're trying to evaluate perhaps another alternative, which is what we're talking about, possibly using Tintri as that alternative to test workloads in conjunction with what you're running with VMware on your environment. So you might be trying that, but in the meantime, what are you going to do about this? It could be possible, and we've seen it with some of our customers, that migrating to TCP would give you, basically a seamless. You're just you're just rehosting your environment versus having to do any replatform or any modifications or anything. And you're managing it in the same utility that it's a VMware-based solution. You're using a vCenter-like management environment on the cloud director, VMware's cloud director. So you're getting all the same functionality that you would have today. You're just putting it in the cloud. And the price point is such that it makes a lot more sense than the hyperscalers, because you're essentially able to run these workloads without any uncertainty in your price, because we're saying, we know what your environment looks like. We're charging you based on the amount of storage and CPU memory that you're using, and that's it. So really nice solution there if you just need to get off of VMware on-premise today. If it's something that you just decided you're going to make that quick move. So next slide. So TCE is actually running so we can run Tintri as software as a service. The operating system that we're running on the appliance, we could put that into the cloud. So right now we're running that in AWS. So this is really nice, I think, mostly for DR as a service. If you are interested in having the Tintri level functionality in the cloud, so being able to push your workloads, like replicate them out to the cloud, and being able to fail over or use it as additional additional infrastructure capacity that you need maybe in a short term or something like that. So really nice in terms of being able to use all the Tintri functionality directly into the cloud. Next slide. And so just a quick look here at the architecture, what that would look like. So again, running any workloads you'd like on-prem or in the cloud. And we've got AWS, Microsoft, wherever you want to run there. Well, of course, or TCP would be the other option to just run directly out of our cloud. Next slide. So then we talked a little bit about Kubernetes. So what we're doing right now, so extending the functionality we have around VMware's capabilities, right? So, or any hypervisor capability, like being able to snapshot, clone, et cetera. If you want to run Kubernetes or trying that out, that's something you can run directly on the Tintri. It's not available at the moment, but it's coming out very soon. And we can demo that, and we could actually put a system in place, and we could show you how that works in your environment. And again, Tony mentioned KubeVirt and some of the challenges there, right? So, but that could be a potential solution. And what we're working with right now is the ability to, we put these persistent volumes onto the Tintri, and then, giving you all that capability again of snapshotting, et cetera. So if you want to set up development environments, you could quickly, clone and copy those persistent volumes. But what might be even more interesting is if those are KubeVirt volumes, we can reach through those into the hypervisor and give you the same level of basically at least visibility into the KubeVirt VMs. So again, giving you that a much greater and richer view of an understanding of the workloads running on your storage versus what you would have with any other storage platform. I think there was a question there. I'm going to quickly pause and take a look at that, just so I like make sure we get that real time. So the question was from Magnus was, when will the local on-prem non-AWS Azure TCE version be released? So that's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that question right now. So I'll have to get back to you on that, Magnus, but we'll definitely will. So with that, he's talking about the essentially the software as a service capability. So I'll get back to you on that, Magnus. I'm sorry about it. I don't know the answer to that right now. So then we're going to wrap all that up with a cloud management platform that manages the whole thing. So our ability to see basically the local and anything running in the cloud, so you can integrate those together for your management purposes. So let's switch over to the demo. So great. So let me share my screen. Hold on, just really quick. So someone let me know that if they can see the screen, they can see my screen there.
We're good. You can see it.
Excellent. Okay. So when you first build this environment out, like so we talked about a management utility that'll cover everything. So this one, the global center, we're looking at a couple of VM stores. So the physical appliances we spoke to, you can tie those together with a pool if you want, and it'll manage the kind of the resources across the pool. It could be as many as 64 devices again. So that's what we talked about. It could be in the multiple tens of petabytes size of environment. But what we're trying to show really is how you manage by the object. So what you're typically going to look at is all my managed objects, or I'm going to drill into a service group where we can collect objects together and apply my policies to those objects. So typically what you see from traditional storage array vendors is, why don't we have a gold tier and a platinum tier and a bronze tier or whatever of capability? And what we can do that, of course, but what would be better in our minds and our philosophy is to do it by the object. So perhaps you have an application or 2 or 3 applications that are critical to your business, and they need a certain level of performance and a certain level of protection, et cetera, that you want to provide. So that's what we call, the storage-based policy management. So we want to do that on a group on a application level. So we just collect the VMs that are part of that application together and provide the policies to those VMs. And I'm going to show you how you provide a policy real quick. So let's take a look at, I've got the Tensus webinar here. So if we go into settings, here's where we would set our policies. So on this virtual machine, again, this is a single virtual machine, but we could do it with a collection. We're setting, the reason I'm doing this so often is because of I want a high level of protection for this VM. I want to be able, if there is, a potential ransomware event, God forbid, we want to be able to get very granular in the timing where we recover that, so we have the least amount of lost transactions. So when we go back in time and start our business running again, and then we, on the same time, we're going through those snapshots and trying to recover any of the transactions that occurred, and go through and try to remediate the ransomware. We get that done, and that's fewer transactions we're going to have to add back in the future. So of course we can replicate to another VMstore, we can replicate to the cloud, we can handle all of that. And then quality of service is an interesting one, because this is something you're not going to see with other vendors, particularly around a single VM or a collection of virtual machines. So what is quality of service for us? So we have the concept that we spoke about a bit with the AI engine that is guaranteeing sub-millisecond response time. That's what we call auto QoS. So we're automatically designed to give all these VMs a certain quality of service. Now, perhaps we're running some test VMs, and that we want to put in a box. So I can say, I want the maximum amount of IOPS to be used by this VM is 500, let's say. So this is normalized IOPS, which is just normalizing the amount of workload that's coming through for each IOP. So I put that in, and this demonstration I'm showing is going to show you that we're both two things really, that the real-time operation as well as the capability of troubleshooting a single VM. So I've got one VM selected here at, that might be a problem VM. So I can go in here and let's say, okay, what do I want to see, since I could say, because there's some host late, but I want to see what the IOPS look like. And I want to see what my latency looks like. Okay. So I just select those. And then over here, you're going to see real time, what's happening. So this was running at, 2000-ish, now down to 1000 IOs. But when we throttled it, and you can see the throttle here, the actual how much latency is being injected, 6.7 milliseconds or so. That's dropping down to the 500 IOs we told it to do. So I think normalized IOs should have dropped down to 500. So it's down to 573. So it's going to normalize out at 500. But you can see how quickly, you can see there's obviously real-time activity here. And everything else, if I wanted to look at what was the impact to my CPU and memory on that at the time that I did that, you can drill into that. So it just dropped how much that was having to do because it was running a little slower. But you can see here that, okay, if my CPU usage is, let's say if I'm troubleshooting and that spikes up over 100% or something, I go add another CPU, like we talked about in the demo, or in the portion, the previous portion. Hey, this is, I'm seeing the CPU usage. I just add another CPU to that. What was the impact instantly there? So I know we're running a little tight on time, but I want to show one other key piece, which is like how simple it is really to clone. Like, so if I want to get another one of these Tensus webinars going, here, you can see it's now dropping down in the amount of IOs it's doing. But if I go look at a Tensus, one of these snapshots, I can go back. We did some a while back for back in July when we did a previous. I can go all the way back there. Someone says, "Hey, I deleted a file on July 15th," so I can go back to the July snapshot, and drill into that and just clone it. And I can clone as many of these as I want. So this becomes really handy for VDI. If I want to stand up 100 sessions, I just stand up 100 real quick. I'll put webinar or something so we recognize it. But so that's going to be instantly available to me. So just a very different way to manage things. So if I go over to VMware here, I forget that this is the one we did here. Yeah. So I just power that on, and then I'll go ahead and shoot out a console to it, and hey, I'm done. I've got this VM starting up here. So that's how easy it is. I'll go back, pull the file I need, whatever, and I could always attach a disk from this snapshot to an existing VM, so that and just pull the file out of there, just hand it off to the user. Hey, go find whatever you need, and then when you're done, I'll take that disk away from you. So they just put it in as a drive letter. So it gives you all kinds of flexibility and power over managing these VMs. So that's kind of the on-premise. That's the on-premise solution there. And then we talk a lot about real-time analytics. So we also have predictive analytics. So I could do things like I can view the trends in my environment, just basically manage my capacity planning. So in this is our DevOps environment. So we have a lot of VMs here, but there's only a handful of them that are really doing a whole lot of work. But one here, let's see, that has some work, that has some stuff on it. I think this one does. So I can look at that particular VM store, look at the trends on that, how busy it is over time. So I can grab, like, maybe go back and grab an area where there was more storage being used. And so you can see these trends. And if I want to, either I need to add a VM store because we're running out of space, or I want to put different workloads on there and see how that's going to impact. I can do a planner, and I could drill in here and basically say, let's do a new one real quick, create a new plan, just to show what actions we can do. So we can, add another VM store to your environment and see how that's going to, and then I could deploy new objects or common VMs. So since we have the AI and we understand what your workloads are, we can take, if you're saying I want to add another 1,000 VDI units, and we already know what those VDI sessions on average do, we can deploy that and we can see what that impact would be to your environment. Can those 1,000 fit in? So anything pretty much you can think of. I want to deploy a new common VM, like another Oracle system, and I know generally what those specs are. How's that going to impact the rest of my environment? So it's awesome because you're doing that again at the VM level, and you're doing it on your specific platform, your specific workloads that are all understood by the system. And this is looking over like a three-year data kind of environment. Okay, so we could drill into any of these things. So I know we're kind of just like flying over this stuff, but anything you want to see, we're happy to get with you and your team to drill in them a little more deeply, and show you exactly what we're doing there. So here's the cloud again. We talked about how it is. It's the VMworks Cloud Director is just a management utility. So extremely similar to if you're a VMware customer today, what you're using. And we can assist you in replicating this data out here. So in this case, we could either run, infrastructure as a service, so move all of your workloads out to the cloud, and run from there, or we can do DR as a service. And again, so some of the advantages here are that you don't have to make any changes to your existing environment. You have a very certain cost structure. Everything is included. So when I say everything, I mean like your firewalls, if you want to have a VPN set up for the way that data is replicated out to the cloud, everything is really handled for you. So if you're going to look at, drill into your VMs, you can see exactly what they're doing. You can even power them on and take a look at what's happening there. You can add more, just like you would with VMware. I want to add more resources to this VM, whatever, or adjust those. All of those capabilities are available to you, just like you would see in vCenter. So I wanted to leave just a few minutes for Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing. I know we did get one question.
Chris, before you stop sharing, this is Tony. You want to go back to the object level? I know you touched on it, but I know you had some Citrix Zen server VMs running right next to the VMware VMs on your object view.
Oh, that's a great point. I'm sorry, I hustled over that. So, for example, we've got this VM that is actually an XCP-ng VM, which is a good example for what Tony's talking about. So, let me go back. I want to go back to let me go back here, and that XPC-ng. So we have data, right, about every single virtual machine. So again, so anything you could think of, we have that. We can see that. So if I want to see what kind of what is this object, I could add that in. So in this case, for the XPC-ng, it's showing up as a Zen server managed object, right? So like we said, we're building this functionality around, we can basically run any XCP-ng because it's Zen. We can run Proxmox because it's KVM based. So these VMs will run in your environment. We'll obviously we would want to test that out. We want to do a pilot with you to show you how that works. But so for this to show up as XPCNG, we need to do a little more work, right? And that's what we're working on now. So we'll eventually, very soon, you'll be able to, this will just show up as XCPNG instead of Zen server. And you're going to already, though, you're still getting all the capabilities and functionality that you would get with this VM. We just want to do further testing to make sure that like, for example, snapshots aren't supported on this object today. So we need to finish all of that work on the product to get all of these working exactly how they should. But this is the goal, right? To give you that freedom of choice, and that's why I think Tony wanted me to drill into that a bit. Does that help with your question, Tony?
Yeah, I just wanted
Want to
to
add on
show,
to
like I
that?
said, the back end for the Hyper-V Zen server, KVM, and having one back end, but you can have multiple hosts attached to it running different hypervisors.
Yeah. So I think your point there, which I think is huge, is that everybody on here is probably, or most people are still running VMware, right? So you want to, at the same time, you want to be able to start testing out other options for you. So we can migrate those on the same platform. We don't have to like create new LUNs or doing anything like that. We just just migrate them quickly and and test them out. And like we showed with quality of service, we can put those in a box so that they're not stepping on any of your other work. You're certain that they won't step on any of your other workloads.
Hey, Chris, there's an additional question from Magnus about pinpointing in the past where, malware or ransomware may have been dropped in.
Yeah. So when we were looking a little bit at the analytics tool there, if you're going to see if there's a ransomware event, what it's doing is encrypting drives, right? Before it starts to encrypt those drives, you typically see a spike in CPU memory activity because the engine turns on, starts to run, and starts to find out which drives where are these drives, and then it'll do the encryption. So that's where we can kind of see that malicious, we can see that malicious activity happening, and that's where we're building AI in this anomaly detection to be able to find this closer, and dig back in time as far as we can to see where that happens. But at a minimum, we had one of our customers have an issue, and hey, we want to keep these snapshots now because we just had a ransom event. We don't want our snapshots to fall off. Like we set a snapshot schedule where the weekly snapshot is gone or the daily snapshots are gone after 5 days. We want to keep all of those now. No problem. We can go in there. It doesn't matter that it's been hit by ransomware. We can go turn that off. So today it's a support call. Eventually it'll be, very soon it'll be you go and turn them off. You might need a key. You might need a dual factor and authentication, et cetera, to be able to do that. But that's something that we'll be able to do. And we can, right now it's really simple. We can do it for you. So that's how you can kind of pinpoint exactly where that timeline is. And since the instant cloning is available, you just clone, go in there, see if the threads of the ransomware are in there, and then okay, they're still on there. It looked like it was at this point in time, but maybe it's a little sooner. Go back another hour or go back to the day before, and so just drill in there. So it's a little bit clunky, but you drill into exactly in an hour. You can drill into exactly where that ransomware occurred. Does that help with the question, Magnus? Okay. Tony, did you want to follow up at all on that integration piece or the assessment?
I'll let Caitlin grab that because I know she wants to talk about the assessment capability as far as sizing and environment, and also there's the TCP trial. I'll let Caitlin talk to that and how they get signed up for that.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thank you, Chris. So how can we help going forward? So there's going to be a couple links dropped in the chat. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and copy and paste those over. The first one's going to be for a feasibility assessment. So we can take a look at your environment if you submit your RV tools assessment and make some recommendations. As well as we have a free TCP trial for 30 days. And again, I think Chris touched on this a bit, but TCP, Tintri Cloud Platform, There's no commitment. It is month to month. You can cancel anytime. There's no ingress egress. So everything is completely predictable. And if you're interested in that, Matt is going to provide a link. We can also help with VMware quotes. So if you wanted us to take a look at your cost per core, and just, share what we're seeing from customers similar to you, I'm more than happy to do that as well. And then another offering we have is bundled VMware licenses and storage. So we're able to offset, because we have the relationship with VMware through TCP, we can bundle your VMware licenses with new hardware. And then Matt, if you don't mind, could you also put my contact information and Chris's contact information in the chat as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions or comments before we close out? Okay. Well, we appreciate everyone's time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And then Matt, correct, there will be a copy of the recording and then a follow-up email as well
Yep,
with the links.
exactly. Yeah, everyone who attended today and or registered but was not able to make it will get a follow-up email with the link to the recording, as well as the links to the trial and the assessment.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matthew. All right, everyone. Well, we appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.